We talked about Ross Atkins returning to the Toronto Blue Jays. Now it is official. John Schneider will be back for 2025.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by Booking.com. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. Well, we got a lot to go over here, Carter, in this episode, but just before we get into all of that, I'm Braden Nuwalsko. He's Carter First. Find us on Twitter, Braden5 Nuwalsko. Carter First, too, as well, on Instagram, TikTok, at Locked On Blue Jays as well. If you're new here on YouTube, make sure you drop a subscription. It really, really does help us out. We notice a lot of you guys aren't subscribed, so you might as well throw one down there. It doesn't hurt anybody. Also, if you're listening anywhere else, YouTube, subscribe, but also hit that notification button so you get notified if we go live or have any shorts or anything like that. Couple more housekeeping things before we get the episode rolling. Our shop is available. We have like some merch, some cool shirts and sweaters and pretty much everything under the sun. So go take a look at that. Link is in the description. You can check it out. LockedOnBlueJays.myspreadshop.com or .ca, either one, wherever you are at. As well as the Discord. Join the Discord, chat with us, sort of, not within the episode. You can go in if you have more general stuff. We can chat about it in there. We have a lot of Blue Jays fans in there, so you might as well go join that and have a good time with the rest of us. A lot to get into, Carter. John Schneider will return. Don Mattingly will return. And man, was there some drama in the NL today. So, man, honestly, I feel like any one of these could be like our top of the ticket segment here. But let's start with John Schneider, the man of the hour. I don't know, man. How do you feel about him just returning? Like, I think I knew this was going to happen, but I wasn't necessarily ready for it. I wasn't ready for the news to come this early that it was going to be John Schneider, leading out this team in 2025.
Overall, for me, I can't really be mad. I talked myself down on this. I was kind of up and down on this roller coaster of emotions all year. Obviously, at the start of the season with the George Springer issue, that was a big red flag for me. That was a big issue. That was something that made me very frustrated, just turning on the TV to watch Toronto Blue Jays every single day and have a black hole hitting at your leadoff spot. And it was the most obvious thing of all time. Nothing was done about it for way too long, as pretty much all of the Toronto Blue Jays community came together and said together. But you get throughout the year, you look at this bullpen, and you look at the resources that you had with this bullpen and what John Schneider had in his display. And he really, when you look at what he had at his disposal, you really couldn't make a good decision because you didn't really have a good play to make when you're looking at this bullpen. You didn't have a lot of strong pieces. You had a couple of arms that you could provide or could rely on in high leverage situations. And a lot of this time, just with these relievers, they just were set up for failure at the get-go. You don't want a matchup where you have Tommy Nance necessarily going against the top of an order. That's not something that is going to be effective in the long run. So with John Schneider, you can't really fault him too much for the lineups, for the bullpen decisions, things like that, because he really didn't have anything that better. There's nothing else he could have did in these situations.
Yeah, and that's sort of where I'm at. I'm not giving him the pass, right? I can't do that because I have seen a lot of bonehead decisions on John Schneider's part. But a little bit of me thinks as well is that there's not enough to go off of. These weren't meaningful baseball games. He wasn't given the right tools to make anything really work. So at the end of the day, if this team can rebuild in the offseason and then they bring us stuff, I think next year is going to be the real testament to what John Schneider is as a manager and what he will be with this Toronto Blue Jays team. I know that there's a lot of fans that are pretty pissed, right? I get the Ross Atkins thing, right? He's in control of a lot of moves and a lot of what happens. The John Schneider one, I think me and you struggle with knowing how much blame to necessarily place on him. Some people will say there's been too much problems. We've seen too much already. Get rid of him. Others will say he's been with these guys for so long. You got to give him a realistic shot at managing a good baseball team. And this Toronto Blue Jays team in 2024 wasn't a good baseball team. I don't think that's up for debate whatsoever. So at the end of the day, Carter, I don't want to say, are you excited to see John Schneider back? But are you willing to give him another chance in 2025? I guess is really the big question in all of this.
We went over it in the middle of the season, I believe. Maybe it was towards the back end of it. We went over whose fault this 2024 season was. Was it Ross Atkins' fault? Was it the players' fault? Was it management's fault? Was it the front office? Was it John Schneider? All these scenarios. And I think me and you both collectively came together and said, you can't really blame John Schneider for what happened, especially when you have Ross Atkins and the players to blame for this 2024 season. Like I said before, like when you have and say you have a blackjack hand, you're dealt a 5 or you're dealt a 2. Does it really matter when you're looking for 21 and the dealer has an ace off rip? You're not setting yourself up for great situations with John Schneider. But again, when you're talking about Schneider, you have a history. You have a history of these decisions that definitely didn't make sense when you're looking at it from our perspective now, looking back on it. But at the same time, this is the discussion we got to bring up as well. Is John Schneider making these decisions by himself? Is John Schneider the one making these lineups? Is John Schneider collectively being the only guy that is blowing the horn and saying, yeah, Jose Berrios, you know what? You're having your best game of the year. No, we're going to take you out in this playoff game. For me, at this point, if you're in the MLB, I feel like there's a lot of things going on behind closed doors. There's a lot of hands in the bucket when you're making a lot of these decisions. John Schneider is just kind of the face of the decision. He's the guy that's taking the brunt of the responsibility if things go right, if things go wrong. John Schneider is the image of the Toronto Blue Jays analytics team, you could say. So there's so many things going on behind closed doors. I think there's so many people that have a say on this, and there's probably a committee of people that do make these decisions. So I don't think making a switch for your bench coach, for your manager, is going to be very impactful for a team that just struggled with roster construction for the 2024 season.
Yeah, and I think when we talked about that and had that conversation of really who's to blame, I did say it was like a ton on the players, and it is. It is a ton on the players. But at the end of the day, you don't have the 4 to 5 superstars that you realistically need to win a World Series. You look at the Dodgers or the Yankees, can you realistically say that the 2024 Blue Jays had a shot from day one to compete with them? I think we're joking ourselves if you honestly think that. Because, yeah, Vlad's great, and Bo, yes, down year, but and usually is great. George Springer's getting up there in age. What do you, honest to God, expect out of him? I think that's the big question heading into the offseason. But there's a lot of these pieces. It's like you need everyone to have career years for that team to succeed. And so, yes, it is on the players. They have to play better. You want Bo to play better. You want Springer to play better. You want Daulton Varsho to hit better. I'm not going to say play better because outstanding on the defense side. But so really, I'm looking back at it and I'm like, this roster from day one wasn't constructed well enough for this team to succeed. So yes, I think looking back, I still give John Schneider a big deal, a lot of relief, right? I don't think that it is, honest to God, his problem. I think it's a Ross Atkins thing more than anybody. And the players. Obviously, you need Bo to have a better year, and I expect that going to 2025. The Blue Jays aren't going to be this team next year, even if they really don't make a ton of moves. If Bo's gonna come back, and when he comes back hotter than ever, I mean, or pretty, even if he's his average, he's way better than he was this season, and that helps this team a ton. You got Jordan Romano back. You'll have Erik Swanson, full health, ready to rock again. This season was the lost season for a reason. So I don't really blame John Schneider. Yes, I have problems with what he's done in the past. It's his first couple seasons. He's going to have those hiccups. But he wasn't given the tools to do the job. And at the end of the day, that's the big thing that I take away from this is, and I'm not letting him off the hook. I want to make that clear. I'm not letting John Schneider off the hook for the stuff he's done in the past. But I think with a better roster and a better constructed roster, I think you have to wait and see what he can bring to the table in 2025. And I guess that's the position we're put in. We have to wait and see what he's done. We can whine and complain all we want, but he's going to be here in 2025. So, like it or not, he's your manager. You're going to back him or are you going to jump ship? I guess I'm backing him.
Yeah, you went into quite a few things here. I'm going to touch on the part of roster construction. this is like a big topic. I'm not going to get too much into this, but you look at a roster like the Dodgers, you look at a roster like the Padres, a roster like the Orioles, even though they did get bounced. You look at just all these very well built rosters. They have 3, 4, 5 superstars on this team within their lineup. The Toronto Blue Jays have 2. You could, some people debate even 2. Like, I don't think you could say 3. So I think you're definitely at 2 with your positional players. So with roster construction, it's you like you said, you're going to need all these guys to have career years if you even want a chance to compete with a lot of these other teams, it seems like. So from a roster construction standpoint, with what John Schneider was provided with, it just you're setting him up for failure. There's really not much he can do in a lot of these situations. But I wanted to kind of for me, the biggest thing with John Schneider is how much of this is really up to him. How much is John Schneider making these decisions? What percentage of this is on John Schneider? So I wanted to do a little bit of a thought experiment here and just go over what is traditionally expected of a manager in a dugout as a part of an MLB organization. For one, you would assume he's making the lineup. So that's be the first thing that I would think of. You'd assume he's putting 1 to 9 on the order and placing in the lineup. But again, you look at these, like it's John Schneider looking at these advanced stats and looking, his George Springer's ex-WOBA was this, or Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s ex-velocity was that last game. Like, there's things that have to be going on behind the scenes that John Schneider, at least to base his decisions off of, even if he was the only one in this situation to be making these decisions. He's there for mental part of it as well. Like you touched on, he he came through the system with a lot of these players, the Bichette's, the Kevin Bichette was when he was here, the Danny Jansen's when he was here, the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So a lot of this is just the mental side of it. Is your dugout confident in you? Is your dugout confident in you backing them if something does go wrong? The umpires make a bad call. Maybe the other team disrespects you. Again, a million different things can happen. But are you going to be able to back your team in a big situation? I think John Schneider has shown that, maybe not to the ability that I've wanted to see. I maybe want to see a little bit more fireworks with his display, make it a little bit more of production for us Toronto Blue Jays fans. But in the most scenarios, he has been able to step up to the plate in that aspect. Other than that, when you're looking at managers, make the lineup, talk to your guys, make sure your guys are feeling good. What else is John Schneider there to do?
Well, I mean, you got to expect the in-game decisions, right? When to go to the bullpen, when to DH, pinch run, all of these in-game stuff. That is his biggest responsibility. The lineup, I mean, for most teams is pretty much preset, right? You know who you want to play. It's those in-game decisions that are the biggest part. And he has had problems with that in the past, of when to go to the bullpen, when to take out that starter, when to DH, when to pinch run, right? It's those little things. And I hate to say it, that's sort of your most important part of the job. And so this is the part of it that my confidence isn't quite there with John Schneider yet. Do I think he's done a horrible job? No, but again, I got to look ahead, right? He hasn't had a ton of experience in the big leagues. He's going to make those mistakes, and with a better roster, it gives you more options and probably better options. So maybe it takes some of those decisions out of your hands. We'll have to wait and see. But again, there are, right? What are the big pieces for you, Carter? Like, is the in-game stuff the biggest component for you, or is it the mentality part of it behind that might be your biggest thing with John Schneider?
And you talk about these in-game decisions. Like for John Schneider, he's definitely a major piece that is making these decisions. But for example, going to the bullpen, you're going to tell me that Pete Walker's not in his ear saying, "Oh, this is where you should go. This is who you should pitch." I work with the pitchers every single day. Like, I should at least have some sort of say in this. For me, it's John Schneider can't be the only guy in the dugout making these decisions. Whether on the offensive side, it's Matt Hay, whether it was Guillermo Martinez at that point. And on the pitching side, obviously, you got Pete Walker. How much is Don Mattingly involved in this stuff as well, as we'll get into in the second segment? So I think there's just multiple hands in this puzzle. Is John Schneider maybe the main piece and the focal point of this? Sure, I think you can say that. But I would love to see just maybe like an inside out, or just like what does the NFL do? The hard knock stuff where they go behind the scenes and kind of like does the upbringing of a team. I'd like to see maybe the inside of the office of John Schneider and what he does to prepare for a game day. I think that'd be something interesting for the Blue Jays fans to see.
Hey, like that NHL face-off series, right? But just with the Blue Jays and just John Schneider. What's his day-to-day? Yeah, I sort of agree, right? It is interesting. That's a thought, the thought process of what do these managers do on a day-to-day basis. It's interesting. And talking about guys who, what do they do? We're about to talk about Don Mattingly being back behind, a part of this Blue Jays organization. And we are going to get into that because, again, we always have these big conversations. Who's to blame? some people were hating Don Mattingly. So we're going to talk about that next because he's making his return as well. Why not?
Today's episode is sponsored by Arena Club. For most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Luka, Ellie, or Mahomes rookie card just isn't in the cards. I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. Thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that I listed was a hit from last week's Arena slab pack drop. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. The Arena Club grading process is accurate, fast, and transparent. That's why I love going with Arena Club. And they give you a full grade rationale provided and the explanation of how your card was scored. Whether you're buying, selling, or trading, Arena Club is the card collecting platform you have to check out. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to the arenaclub.com/lockedonmlb and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's arenaclub.com/lockedonmlb, code LOCKEDONMLB for 10% off your first purchase. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in to start this segment. You were talking about pre-game routines. You were talking about just, what does a manager do before going to the baseball diamond? What do some of these coaches do before going to the baseball diamond? I don't know what Pete Walker does before going to the baseball diamond. Let's see what his morning routine is. You wake up, you maybe go to the cabinet, you pour some special sauce in there. You get the day going with a little bit of a kick. I think maybe we can learn a thing or two from our old boy Pete. Just obviously maybe a different way of transportation to the Rogers Center, if anything.
Yeah, we know he's not driving. No, you're right. And that's all of these bench coaches and hitting coaches, pitching coaches, whatever Don Mattingly's new title is going to be. What are all of these guys day-to-days? I'd love to know because we've heard from players that they don't necessarily take a bunch from their hitting coaches or their pitching coaches. All these guys have their guys that they go back to in the offseason. It's not these guys on the team that are making these big swing changes or pitching. Maybe it is a little bit for the pitching, but for the hitters, they got their coaches that they trust and they go to. So I know what everybody's thinking is, people were mad about Don Mattingly. Why? Why are you mad about Don Mattingly? I don't even know what the guy does. Like, maybe you're mad because maybe you're just thinking, what does he do? Then fair enough. But if you're mad at him because how the season went, that just doesn't compute with me at all, Carter.
I mean, just if we're talking about coincidences, Don Mattingly joined the Toronto Blue Jays in November of 2022. The 2023 offense was not that good. If you remember the start of 2024, which hopefully we can forget in the next coming months, the offense was not very good. Again, you have some career lows that just are impossible to anticipate. But some are saying it's not a coincidence. Some are saying it's the Don Mattingly effect. So maybe having that guy in the dugout close to this Blue Jays organization is maybe a little bit of a problem. Maybe we need a Dante Bichette back in this dugout. Go back to 2021, get some of those vibes flowing. But this is what Ross Atkins said from his press conference that happened a few days ago. So he goes, it's from Keegan Matheson. Don Mattingly is moving into a more traditional role as a bench coach. And this is his role before, no longer the offensive coordinator. So that's what Don Mattingly was doing at the start of the 2024 season. And again, part of the coincidence argument is if Don Mattingly was the offensive coordinator in 2024, you can't tell me in 2023 when he was here, he at least wasn't in somebody's ear talking about the offense, doing something to impress somebody to get this promotion to the offensive coordinator. So again, how much are you taking away from this? How much is he actually doing? Again, nobody really knows. There hasn't been too much to come out about this. Again, we'd love to see if there's like a Hard Knocks or just a player talking about it, stuff like that. But like you said, a lot of these players, especially in the offseason, they're not going to the Guillermo Martinez's of the world, not anymore. Obviously, the Matt Haggs we'll use now. They're not going to Pete Walker if you're a pitcher in the offseason. You're going to your personal guy. A lot of these guys from all over the world as well. Some of them will go back to the Dominican Republic. Some of them will go back to Europe. Some of them will go across the world to Asia. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani, he might go back to Japan for a little bit. There's a bunch of different scenarios that you got to account for as well. Not everyone's going to be in the exact same place the entire offseason. And a lot of offseason time is unaccounted for. You don't need to report for a lot of these training camps until mid-February, end of February, start of March, things like that. So there's a lot of off-season time that you can be training that you're not going to be with the team. So I think you're going to take a lot more away from that when you're spending a whole majority of an off-season with them training on something. And especially when you're mid-season, you're not going to be making these major changes. You're going to be making little tweaks. You're not going to do big, completely change your swing. You're not going to make tweaks like that. You do something minor, maybe it's with your hands, maybe it's rotation, things like that. So you're doing most of your work in the offseason.
You know what, Carter? I actually just saw a great sort of demonstration, and I think it was Pete Rose was on a network show, right? Obviously on one of these sports channels. I don't know which one it was. And it talked about that a lot of these players don't even or shouldn't even make huge swing changes. You grew up swinging the same way. It's about where you are in the box, how you're coming through. It's, if you should you move up in the box, should you move back, should you move forward, should you move backwards, all these things. So my big question is, you were just talking about, changing the swing during the season and not having to do that. Well, in my head, I sort of agree. Why is anybody making changes at all in the season? Like at most, it should be moving around in the box, because why would you try something completely different in the middle of the season? We talk about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. making swing changes, Davis Schneider making swing changes. Is that the answer? I don't know. And I'm now seeing a bunch of videos talking about this. So this just goes back to, what are hitting coaches doing? Like what is the draw here? I don't get it. You know what? Great for Don Mattingly that he's got a position with this team. Again, I think you got to have some respect for the game with him, right? And that's part of it. But at the end of the day, a bench coach isn't going to make or break a team that is either a World Series contender or last place. That's not going to happen. So at the end of the day, anybody blaming Don Mattingly, I mean, I don't know. Take a look at baseball. Just like watch a game. Is Don Mattingly out there fielding balls? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just a scapegoat I think a lot of people are using with a lot of these coaching members. The more that I watch Toronto Blue Jays, the more I realize that it's the players on your team that are usually going to impact your roster. For example, you got a guy like IKF. You talk about swing trade changes, things like that. What IKF did is he did make a little bit of a swing change, I guess you could say, but it was mostly with his footing. It was just, instead of doing this big leg kick, he went to a little bit more of a stride. He just got to the ball quicker. We saw IKF pull a lot of balls in his short time with the Toronto Blue Jays. So it's little things like that. Like, yeah, just using your hands a little bit more. Again, where you're standing in the box. Why would you use a whole off season to work on specific things just to give that all up in 2-3 weeks because things aren't going well for a little bit? You think you try more of the minor changes before you completely just jump ship on what you were working towards for such a long period of time. But again, it's people are superstitious. It's tough to be bad at baseball for a long period of time. You're there every day. Obviously, you're not going to be in the highest of spirits. Nobody wants to be bad at baseball. So people reach a breaking point. They do things that aren't necessarily smart in the long run. But that was an interesting point from Pete Rose. I can't remember which station it was, but it was with Alex Rodriguez and Frank Thomas. So they were talking with them. A great segment. You guys should check that out if you do have the option. But with Don Mattingly, yeah, I've been joking around a little bit this podcast. What does he really do? Like, again, it's a bench coach. The only time that a bench coach really matters if you have Charlie Montoyo playing the bongos and just being a huge distraction to literally everyone in the dugout. If he's not being an absolute nuisance in there, I don't think it overly matters too much. You can, again, leave comments whether you think I'm completely wrong. You think Guillermo Martinez was the saving grace at one point for the Toronto Blue Jays. As you can tell from our demeanor on this podcast, we don't take a lot from what these coaches and these players are asking from their coaches within a season. So leave a comment if you agree with us, or if you don't, and you think that these coaches have more of a role within a season. But we have some MLB stuff to talk about. A lot of crazy stories going on in the season. Jurickson Profar almost getting in fights with fans. A lot of good games going on. The Mets just almost being comeback kings in every single game. A fun storyline there. A lot that we want to get into. But we have some things that we want to talk about. We're just going to take a short break, and we're coming back with some MLB stories from around the league.
Today's episode brought to you by Booking.com. Explore those U.S. cities you've always secretly wanted to learn more about. Maybe it's time to test your baseball competition stadium cuisine. Luckily on Booking.com, you can find the stadium stay that's just right for you. With Booking.com's wide variety of choices across the U.S., you can go incognito to all your baseball rival cities. I talk about this all the time. Went to New York, went to Minneapolis, we went to Toronto, and all of these were helped along by Booking.com. I mean, it just makes everything so much easier. We're actually heading to Vegas in February, and for sure we're going to be using Booking.com. We'd be stupid not to, and same with you guys. So make sure you go check it out. Booking.com delivers exactly the right U.S. stay for you. Booking.com can also help you book a stay that's close to your home team or rival stadiums. Make sure you check it out. Booking.com, booking.yeah. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. I always talk about how great FanDuel is. I mean, I could sit here and talk for hours about FanDuel because I just won a ton of money betting on the NFL. Hopefully, you guys can do the same thing. Now that, the Blue Jays season's over, you got to find something else to bet on besides the Toronto Blue Jays. So maybe it's the postseason. Maybe it's NFL. Maybe it's NHL. It's got everything available for you. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Check out their live same-game parlays. I'm telling you, it is unmatched. FanDuel.com, live same-game parlays. Hit it. Make some money with me. Hopefully, I can continue on this sort of run here. I need it. I was down. Now I'm back up because of those games. Check them out. So, Carter, some drama within the NL. And I'm telling you, dude, this is postseason baseball at its finest. This is what I want. I want the drama. I want the commotion, the chaos. And the Padres seem to be just living right in the middle of it.
Crazy scenes from Dodger Stadium. It's absolutely insane what was going on. Jurickson Profar just might be the most hated guy in California right now, which a fan throws a baseball, doesn't hit him, but it's right in his vicinity. The game has to get delayed because Jurickson Profar is going bananas. The fans are screaming at him. Obviously, he's kind of giving it back to the fans, riling them up as well. But a lot of emotions going on in that baseball game, which you absolutely love to see. I don't know if this is just for me. I don't know if you've had the same experience, but I've had way more fun watching the NL series compared to the AL. I don't know really why. Maybe it's because, again, we'll get into the Mets after. The Mets have been a fun team to watch, but the Phillies, great baseball team. Obviously, the game that just happened was absolutely, it's nuts. It's so fun to watch just maybe players that we don't see every single day just perform in a baseball game that means so much, obviously, to the players.
Yeah, and I think it sort of goes back to, us being Blue Jays fans. We don't I don't want to sit and watch the Yankees play. Like, that's the last thing I want to do. I just want to see them fail, and then I can be happy. So when it's the NL, it's like, oh, okay, I have some respect for some of these guys. Again, I've always said this, I'm not a Bryce Harper guy, but the rest of that Phillies team, I do like, right? Like, I love JT Romeo too. I think he's just a great player, a great catcher. And I think that getting into that series, I mean, the Mets are just nuts, dude. Pistol Pete is absolutely electric. That guy, when he hits a home run, if you were a Mets fan and you see Pistol Pete hit a home run, that's like your Jose Bautista. That's what I would assume. That guy is the saving grace of that team.
They were calling for his head before that Braves home run as well. He didn't seem like he was a fan favorite whatsoever. A lot of people were saying, like, "Oh, thank God he's a free agent."
It's those Mets fans, man. They're nuts. All those New York fans.
Yeah, Frank the Tank was not impressed at that moment. until that home run was hit, he was not impressed.
I'm sure Frank's got some takes for sure. So interesting guy. Go check him out if you guys want Frank the Tank. You can see. I think he has like cooking videos up too, where he's barbecuing. It's one of the
what he's doing now.
I don't know. He does everything. But no, just going the NL, man. It's a ton of fun, right? The Phillies Mets. I mean, the Dodgers Padres. The Dodgers Padres was just electric. And any time that any team can get under the skin of the Dodgers or the Dodgers fans, fire me up. That team, the amount of money that they spend, I just don't want to see them win, dude. Like, yeah, great for Shohei Ohtani. My mom said this to me the other day. She says, Shohei Ohtani deserves a championship. And I don't necessarily disagree with her, but it still does not make me want them to win because they just spend so much money and get whatever player they want. So I will never cheer for the Dodgers, but I agree. Shohei Ohtani, I think to cement his place as, one of the greatest all time, I think he does need a championship.
I mean, Shohei Ohtani has hit more home runs than the entire Angels organization in 2024 in the postseason. So just right there, clearly Shohei Ohtani is worth a lot of money. He's hit more than the entire Toronto Blue Jays team combined in the 2024 postseason. So he's clearly doing something that's working over there that's not working too much over here. But one thing I wanted to get into before we do head out for today is just the end of the article I read just at the end of the Padres and Dodgers game. So obviously you see the Jurickson Profar stuff. And I watched a little bit of the game. Again, there's NFL football on, so I have a lot going on. I'm just kind of tuning in when, again, things are happening between two games. But then the article says, Flaherty accuses Machado of trying to throw a ball at Dodgers dugout. So I went and looked. I don't really see what he's, again, the emotions are high. I think this is kind of a bold accusation. It'd be a very bold move by Manny Machado to just, launch a ball at the Dodgers dugout just because he's in the emotional state of the MLB playoffs. But just a funny game that I love to see it. I opened the call for John Schneider to get kicked out of the baseball games with some fireworks. This is what I love to see. I love to see high emotions. I love to see players caring about what they're doing. They put so much time and effort into all this, blood, sweat, and tears. So it's nice to see them putting it all out on the line in these late months of October for us Canadians. We're getting to the winter. So baseball's a little bit last bit of fall, I guess you could say.
Yeah, dude. You know what? And baseball does get heated. It's a part of the game. And maybe one day on this podcast, maybe during the off season or something, I'll tell the story about how I got tossed and suspended from provincials for the first game of the provincials, because it was leading up to that. It was absolutely ballistic, and I mean that means nothing compared to a World Series. So I can imagine how crazy emotional everything gets. But Carter, in saying that, my man, this is a Monday episode. It's late. We just played a hockey game. The boys got the win, not thanks in part to any of things that we did, but you know what? We're still here. We're still there.
The boys combined for what? 3 points, 4 points? I mean, I'll take it.
Two assists each, I think, right?
Yeah, I'm not keeping track of my own assists. I know I have one for sure. I'll keep track of my goals. When I light the lamp like 4 times in our 28 games, I try to remember those moments. So that'll probably have in the back of my memory. But yeah, the assists. I mean, it is what it is. If I could just, sometimes you just throw pucks in the net and things go well. We'll get better. I said I'll activate in November. I still got a couple more games to figure it out here. It's a 2-month ramp up for your Locked On Blue Jays co-host.
All right, dude. You know what? We got to get out of here. Make sure we appreciate everybody making us your first listen. Make sure you guys go check out Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan. Sully, great guy, great show. Covers the entirety of the MLB. So all the playoffs, all the drama, he'll have it all there. Probably talking about exactly what happened tomorrow. So go check it out. As well, make sure you guys drop a subscription if you haven't already. It really does help us out. We can't stress that enough. And check out the shop. We got some cool stuff there. If you want something, if you want to support us, grab something. Whatever it is, it's cool. Be cool to see like the logo out somewhere or something like that. Anyway, guys, appreciate it. Have a good Monday. Kick off the week right. Unlike us, we're probably going to be running on like no sleep, but it is what it is. Here we go. Happy Monday.